One more quick one on Georgia to put a bow on it. Is the president going to change the way that he talks about the new Georgia voting law? Because in that interview that you referenced, he said the law would end voting at 5 o'clock when working people are just getting off, and he said it would end voting hours early so working people can't cast their vote after their shift is over. But the Washington Post gave that claim 4 Pinocchios because that part of the law gives counties the option to extend voting hours. And so I'm just curious if the president is going to change the way that he's talking.
Well, fundamentally, the president doesn't believe it should be made harder to vote. He believes it should be easier. And this bill makes it harder to request and return an absentee ballot. It collapses the length of Georgia's runoff election, making it harder for large jurisdictions to offer early voting. It imposes rigid new restrictions on local officials' ability to set polling hours to suit the needs of voters in their county. Those are all pieces of the bill. So his view is that we need to make it easier and not harder to vote, and that will continue to be what he advocates for.
But the thing he said has been determined by election law experts to be not true. So I'm just curious if he's going to stop saying that.
Well, again, I think we can, the fact checkers will also tell you that this bill does not make it easier for people across the state of Georgia to vote, and that's where he has concerns.
But the president does acknowledge that the new law doesn't change election day voting hours, right?
Well, look, Caitlin, it also doesn't expand them for early voting and makes early voting shorter. So there are a lot of components of the legislation he is concerned about, and that's what he was expressing.
Right, but he does acknowledge that because his comments have been confusing about closing it at 5 p.m.
That's correct.
So he does acknowledge that it doesn't change.
I think what's important is to report on all the components that make it more difficult to vote in the package in the legislation.